Hi everyone, it's Eliana and I have a card to share with you today. Today I'm going to be using the Simon Says stamp Abstract Triangle Background stamp. I am prepping my watercolor paper with my embossing tool and I'm going to use this very dingy Versamark ink pad. I keep it around simply because sometimes it's just easier to be able to see the dingy lines on some white cardstock. I am going to be using some silver embossing powder, so it's okay if you could see the lines. If I am using clear embossing powder, then I use a cleaner pad. I wanted to make a masculine card for Father's Day, and so I thought the abstract triangles would be a good stamp. Making a Father's Day card is a little bit of a bittersweet experience. My father passed away right as I started to sell the Misties, so he was never able to see where we've taken the product. But I still have to make a card for my father-in-law and for my husband, so I am still blessed to have those men in my life, but it does make me miss my dad a little bit. Right now, I am just removing any stray pieces of embossing powder with a little spotter brush. And now I'm going to go ahead and heat set my embossing powder. Once everything is all set, I'm going to trim down my panel and I'm going to adhere it onto a board, and use some purple tape from Thermal Web to hold my project down. I haven't used my Gansai Tambi watercolors in a long time, and so I thought I would pull those out. I am using the silver, and I also will be using the black, which is number 20, and a blue, which is 67. The silver is number, let me see, 95. So those are the three colors that I'm using. And so what I started to do was I coated my entire cardstock with the silver color first. And I am taking some of the silver color and just putting it onto a white plate. And this is just an inexpensive plate that I usually use for photography, but it will work just for this. Now I'm going to take a silver brush, and this brush is a travel brush. That's why you saw me take it apart. And I'm adding some water to the blue, and I'm going to dump it out into this plate. The reason why I'm doing that is because at Creativation, there was a scribe there. He did calligraphy. I don't recall his name, but I was overhearing him talk to someone about watercolors, and he had said that watercolors are pigments that have a bonding agent within them, and that's how you get your little um, pans of watercolor. And if you let the water sit in there, eventually the bond or the adhesive that you use to keep the pigment together will disintegrate, and so it will ruin your watercolors. So he said the best thing you can do is you can add a little bit of water to your pan and then you dump out the color. That way you don't have the water breaking down the bond. And what I did was I mixed some of the silver with the black so that I could get like a gray or a gunmetal kind of color. And now I'm just going to color random triangles and try to form some kind of a pattern. Now, you don't really have to use just the two colors. You can use however many colors you want, but I stuck with two because you can always create another color just simply by watering down your watercolors. So the less water you have, the deeper the pigment is. The more water you have, the lighter the color is. So I'm just going to fast forward through the coloring, and I've sped this up quite a bit, and then you're going to see me cut to different parts of the watercoloring. I like to do embossing with my watercoloring because it kind of creates a well for the color so that you don't really have the watercolor seeping out. It doesn't always work that way because sometimes I add too much water and then it just spills over. But it's really easy just to add a little bit of clean water and then you can sop up that color. Most of the time you can remove most of the color and you won't even see that you made a mistake. So now I'm adding a little bit of water so that the blue won't be as bright, so it'll mute it down just a little bit, and so I'm just going to continue on with my pattern. I made several of these cards, and at the end of the video you'll see the varieties that I made. I did the same watercoloring, I just added different sentiments to fit different occasions. I am trying to be random with the colors, but I also want to make sure that I don't end up with two that are right next to each other. But if that does happen, it's perfectly fine because you can just change the shade as I did here. Now you can also decide whether you want one triangle to be in front or behind the other depending on where you color. So on the one I'm coloring now, I want this one to be behind that little bitty blue one, so I'm going to skip that little piece. So I'm putting my template down so that I'm able to test out which alphabet set I want to use. So I've cut out the word dad with different dyes just to see which one I feel works best with the design I've created. And I'm really not sure which one I want to use, so I think if I add a little strip, a sentiment strip underneath, that might help me decide. This alphabet here are from Altenew. It's the inline alpha die. This one here is the Lawn Fawn Louis ABCs, and this final set, the other one was the bold alphabet set die. I didn't like either one of them, and so I decided, well, I'm going to pull out some thickers. I have plenty of thickers that have just remained in a drawer unused, and so I find one that I think would work best. I did cut out the part of the video where I pulled out like 4 sets of alphabets, and I'm just showing you the one that I picked. Now I'm going to add a sentiment strip. So the sentiment I chose is from the Altenew Amazing You stamp set. I find that I reach for their sentiments a lot lately. They have a large variety and I have a lot of their stamps, so it makes it pretty easy. Now I'm adding some Versamark ink so that I could add some white embossing powder. I'm going to be using Brutus Monroe Alabaster. And if I haven't mentioned it before, I really do like that container. So once I have heat set everything, I'm going to trim down this piece. And now I'm going to cut out my panel. I am using the stitch rectangles from Lawn Fawn. I like this set because it will give you a nice border around your card. Once I have that mounted, I need to add my sentiment, and I'm going to use the L ruler from the Creative Corner set just so that I could have my sentiment nice and straight onto the bottom. Once I have that in place, it'll make it really easy to put the thickers back in place. So because they are self-adhesive, it makes it super easy. I just didn't press down really hard until I was sure where I wanted to place it. And here I'm just going to use my tweezers to put the letters down. Once that's all set, I kind of really feel like it still needs something, and so I pull out some gems, and I'm going to use the Studio Katia silver gems, and I'm just going to place them strategically along my card. It was a little bit easy for me to find spots to put these just because I made it a point to intersect different parts of the pattern. And so here's my card. This one will go from my daughter to my husband. And I also made it into a birthday card. The birthday is from the Altenew Birthday Builder stamp set. And the happy are actually some chipboard letters that I had in my stash. I used to do a lot of scrapbooking, so I still have a lot of my supplies because one day I will get back to it. This one here uses the brushed thanks from Simon Says Stamp, and the sentiment is also from Altenew, and it is from the Mini Thanks stamp set. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. Be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Have a great day.